Nearly half of older Americans have no retirement savings. Now, to be fair, the GAO did state that about 40% of the households covered in its study had access to a pension through their employers. Still, if you're approaching retirement with little to no money to your name, it's imperative that you start saving immediately. Otherwise, many workers underestimate the importance of retirement savings, largely because they assume that they'll mostly manage to get by on Social Security. But hey, race the reality. While you might manage to, and you'll shed your commuting costs once your career ends, the bulk of your remaining expenses, like food, utilities, and clothing, will stay the same. Furthermore, if you're in your mid-50s or older, the truth is that you don't have a ton of time to catch up on retirement savings. But that doesn't mean maxing out a 401k for 10 years will yield much more impressive results. $345,000, all other things being equal. Of course, even if you can't max out a 401k at $25,000 a year, you might reach some sort of middle ground between that extreme and saving a mere $7,000 in an IRA. For example, finally, if you're nearing retirement with hardly any savings, it pays to consider postponing that milestone and working a few extra years. Doing so will entering retirement without savings is a scary prospect. If that's the scenario, The Motley Fool has sponsored the $16,728 Social Security bonus most retirees completely overlook. If you're like most Americans, you're a few years or more behind on your retirement savings. But a handful of
Raindrop, truck top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.